This is you. This is the guy she told you not to worry about. Alright boys, today's video is going to be a bit of a product review and a comparison because we got some big things coming for the IS300, one of which is relocating the battery. So today we're going to be checking out some crimpers used for making custom battery cables. So I ended up getting both a cheap set and an expensive set of battery cable crimpers. So today we're putting them to the test and seeing what works better. Now, one of the things that I really get stuck on when I'm building cars like this is I'm kind of a perfectionist and I really like everything to come out just the way that I want it. Now, that means that I have to spend pretty much twice, if not 3 times the money that most of you guys are gonna have to spend just to make sure that small little details come out the way that I want them to. Now, that's pretty much exactly why I'm making this video, because I'm trying to take the financial responsibility of that so that you guys don't have to. Once you guys see the comparison of these two crimpers, then you'll know exactly what is going to work for you in your situation. Now, as we've opened up both of the cases, we're going to find pretty much the same thing. We have our hydraulic cylinder that's going to be our main crimper, and then all of these dies. Now when we open up the Temco, we're going to see that this one has pretty much twice as many dies, and half of them have dots on them, half of them don't. That's because the Temco has half-size dies to make sure that all of the dies are perfect for your specific application. Alright, so next to each other, what I'm seeing as far as differences is the Harbor Freight one does not have a spring in the handle, where the Temco one does have a sprung handle, so that's more easy to use as a single-handed operation, where that one kind of sucks. Of course, the die selection is a huge difference, and you can see how these ones have all the little imprints to imprint the wire gauge onto it. Other than that, I mean, you can obviously tell how different the quality is on like the outsides. The Temco one is nice and machined. This one kind of, you can see a bunch of weird little marks on it. But basically at the end of the day, it looks like most of it's pretty much the same. Now, looking at the basic construction of them and comparing the differences is all well and good, but what really matters is how they perform. Now, for that reason, I've got a section of 2-gauge wire and, of course, our 2 lugs that we're going to be installing onto this thing. As you guys can see, I have 2 different styles of them. One is a copper and one of them is a tinned copper lug. I personally prefer the tinned copper lugs because copper likes to corrode when it's put in really harsh situations, where the tinned copper has the tin coating on the outside to make sure that it doesn't. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut a section of this, just a nice little short one, and show you guys what we're gonna be doing. So this wire that I'm using specifically is from Battery Cables USA, and I chose this one because, as you guys can see, it is dual-walled construction. It's got the white inner and the black outer, so that shows if there's any sort of scuffing or anything on the wire that's deep enough to get through the first wall, it'll show white, and then you'll know that you need to replace it. The sheathing on this wire is also resistant to oil, which is very important because in engine bays we're going to be exposing this to oil and all kinds of chemicals. There's one thing that I see a lot of people do when they're replacing battery cables. They'll use something like welding cable, and although welding cable is cheap and easy to get, it's actually not oil resistant, so any oil that gets on the shielding of it will cause it to swell up, get soft, and not protect the wire as well. So this stuff is a lot better. So I'm going to go ahead and mark where I need to strip to. Basically, I'm just trying to get it all the way the depth of the lug. Now we just pull it off and we have our stripped wire. Now we can go ahead and stick our lug on the wire just like that. And I'm going to go ahead and strip the other side too, just so that we can get both of these done at the same time. Alright, so we've got both of our ends stripped to the point where they'll accept the cable lugs. Now we can go ahead and crimp them. So I'm going to start out with the Harbor Freight version. As you guys can see, we've got the 0-gauge dies in it right now. These guys just come straight out. And we're going to have to find our 2-gauge dies to put in to make sure that this crimps it correctly. And they are going to be marked on the dies, so you just have to find the ones that say to American wire gauge. So we can go ahead and fit those into the tool, and that's going to be it to start our crimp. I'm going to go ahead and use the Harbor Freight one on the copper lug because that's honestly the one that I probably wouldn't use on my car, and then the Temco on the tinned copper. So both tools just have a little knob right here to release the hydraulic pressure, and then a handle to basically pump out the hydraulic. Now when you want to start a crimp, you just tighten that as far as it'll go, and then stick your lug into the receptacle and start clamping it down. And just go down until you pretty much can't squeeze anymore with your hands. Now we can go ahead and release that. And our crimp is done. Now before I show you guys the results, I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing, but with the Temco. So the Temco basically works the same way. We got the same knob, the same pump handle. And just like that, both of our crimps are performed, and now I can show you guys the differences. So one of my main gripes with the Harbor Freight ones is these little wings that it leaves behind. As you guys can see, that crimp is supposed to be a hexagon, a perfect hexagon, but it's got these wings on both sides because the die is honestly undersized. You can see how the dies didn't necessarily line up the best, so you get this weird little diagonal section on there. It's not great. The Temco, however, produces this nice, perfect hexagonal pattern. Also, it's going to imprint the gauge of the wire onto the lug right there and right there. So that's kind of a cool touch. Honestly, both of these crimps will work. They're both tight. They're not going to come off. Like this is a quality crimp on both sides. That being said, this is something that I would want to be showing in my engine bay or wherever I put it. And this is something that I'd kind of be embarrassed to show people. So if it were up to me, I'd say spend the extra money and get the Temco and something that'll produce a result that you'd be proud to show people. But if you're on a budget, Harbor Freight will work 100%. There's nothing wrong with it. And it'll get the job done, but it won't look as nice. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave links to both of the crimpers and all of the materials that I use down in the description. If it's something that you guys wanna look into, then it'll all be down there. Now, if you guys wanna see these crimpers actually being put to use, making custom battery cables for my IS300, then make sure to subscribe to the channel. We've got lots of cool videos coming up and a lot of big stuff coming up. So with that being said, I'll see you guys next time.